Hey guys, Jamie here from Flow Genome Project. Just wanted to give a quick update on a cognitive mapping model. So in our recent book, Stealing Fire, and lots of our trainings, we talk about moving from OS to UI, meaning how to move our psychological operating system just over to kind of the user interface of our dashboard, right? And how do we just kind of monitor our neurobiology to shape and inform and support our psychology. So that's the notion of OS to UI kind of in a nutshell. Right? And so the question is, what does that look and feel like, right? Easier said than done, and easier said to say, take the 80% of our lives that we typically live psychologically, and the 20% that we spend just monitoring the rest of us, and just flip the script entirely and spend only 20% monitoring our psychology and 80% on fundamentally embodied cognition. How do our bodies, brains, and hearts, lungs, everything else support, vitalize, and energize our lived experience? And we got some crazy ass dogs. Wham, wham, wham. That's a little one, a super little one, but she's feisty and does not defer to her betters. Good Lord, this is like Wild Kingdom over here. But to really give an experiential of what does only living with 20% of our psychology look like? Well, the simplest thing is to think of sort of quantum mechanics, where you think, are things a wave or a particle? And obviously in quantum theory, the understanding is sort of both and neither, right? Except we are raised in the exact opposite of that. We're raised, generally speaking, with rational binary problem solving. So it's either or, black or white, night or day, right or wrong. Always. We always just pick and split. And that's how we build. That's our computer base code with binary ones and zeros. It's literally, even as far as electrons spin and quarks and protons, it's fundamentally the base structure of the universe is encoded binary information. And so we tend to think that way. But the trick is that once you get beyond regular, rational, simple problem solving, you're getting from binary solvable problems into complex wicked problems, open-ended ones. And that's most of our life, right? That's the existential crisis of what does it mean to be alive, awake, and aware, and at the same time destined to die and decay in these eroding meat bodies of ours. It's how do you sort of be in this world and not of it. It's the balance between love and power. It's all of these things that we wrestle with, right? So the question is can we stay above it all? And basically, can we play the game of the longer decision making? Because obviously, as any military commander knows, the longer I can put off a decision, the more accurate information I have by the time I finally do make that decision, right? So rather than doing what we and then we collapse the waveform, we collapse that particle wave, how might this turn out, into a certain thing, and we tend to Bigfoot it. We're often quite clumsy, and we often either repeat or actively avoid, which is just the mirror image of old patterns, right? So we're hypervigilant, we have confirmation bias about what's possible right now. What is this event going to be? Is it going to be another time where he loves me and leaves me? Is it going to be another instance where I'm left at the altar or hurt or abused or whatever it would be? We look for these things, right? Or is it another fantastical rescue from my plight, like a lottery or a blind date? So in any event, the longer we can supersede judgment, the smoother the ride. And I want to share a couple of examples. One from the world of like action sports and mountain biking, right? If you back in the day had one of those little rickety old beach cruisers with no suspension, rigid as hell, and you tried to take it down a rocky ass downhill road, you would be having to pick your way, right, through all the rocks and down basically the little gully that water used to flow on, but you couldn't do much else without getting your fillings rattled out, right? And that's fairly equivalent to us trying to navigate all of life and all the complexity and all the wicked problems we see with our rational binary egos, right? Seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, trying to affirm our stories and narratives, living from inside one of those narratives exclusively. That's like that little rickety ass bike with no suspension, no travel, no shock absorption, picking its way down a very limited run. But you now move to contemporary downhill mountain bikes that basically look like motorcycles with the engines taken out. Right? You don't even have to pick a line. You can just say, I'm going to pick a general angle on the mountain, and I'm just going to let everything else float over that. And that is analogous, or at least can be analogous, to what does it mean to pop up our psychology above discrete binary problem solving, narrative fulfillment, and decision making down on a lower level of awareness. Okay, and another good example is that old classic Chinese fable. Some of you may well have heard it, but share it anyway, which is the good luck, bad luck, who knows, right? So the Chinese farmer is what happens? The series of events. I think the first thing that happens is that his horse runs away. All of his neighbors come by gossiping. Oh, must be a terrible thing. He says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? And the stray horse comes back with an entire wild herd. He's suddenly the wealthiest man in the village. They say, oh, that's amazing. He says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? His son tries to tame some of those horses, and then comes the neighboring warlord and conscripts all the able-bodied men and everybody but his son, right, get taken off to war and don't come back alive. And finally, his house is burned down and he rebuilds it up on the hill. Good luck, bad luck, and the flood comes and wipes out the rest of the village, right? So the point being is that our personal preferences and timelines, including immediate existential narcissist egoic validation, like we're needing to make meaning of things right away versus just holding our mud a bit, that is what creates suffering far more than can kind of steer the quantum waveform of hyper Schrodinger's cat, all that good stuff. It's both and neither. And can we float that, just like the mountain biker? Like, because what happens when somebody's scared? When somebody's scared and we're going down a rocky hill on a bike, what do? We hit the brakes. What do the brakes do? They actually slow down the rotation of the wheel. They drive us. They amplify the force of gravity and pin us down to those very rocks and things we were trying to avoid. So in our initial fear response, this is the same thing with rock climbing. What happens when we're scared of falling off a mountain? We lean into the rock and start clinging to it, which takes the weight centered and balanced off our feet and the rubber on our shoes, which actually is what gives us grip and makes us safe. So all of our survival instincts, same thing with skiing. We fall into the hill and we lose our traction on our edges and wash out. So you have to throw yourself down the mountain, right? You have to stay light and fast over rocky sections, and cognitively, psychologically, that's the equivalent of the good luck, bad luck. Who knows, right? So if I notice events as data versus as confirmation of a pre-existing narrative I've got in the can, which is basically fight or flight or survival or validation or affirmation, right, or rejection, right? It's one of those. It's a very simple set of scripts, basically. If we can stay above all that, then we get to spend more time just sensing, thinking, feeling, and the more vitalized and energized we've tended and cared for our body-brain system, meaning I'm rested, meaning I'm flexible, I have good nutrition, right? I'm right with my relationships, I'm experiencing gratitude more often than not. All of those kind of just common sense basics. Then we can spend more time in the loving cup. So I hope that's, let's just see what folks have said. Universally timeless and yet somehow very timely. Awesome. So Erwin, always good to see you as well. If anybody has any thoughts or questions on that, happy to take them as much as anything else. Just always. That's Julie.
Hi, everybody.
That's Julie. Julie's where all the good ideas come from. I just make the Matthew. Happy Wednesday evening, I believe, and we will be back hopefully on Friday for a Freaky Friday where we will kick out the jams a little bit more. Be well, everybody.